I would like to share an Arabic proverb that I was taught a few months after my dad passed away. And this will be a little lesson on how to deal with grief for those of y'all who have lost someone at some point in your life. A few months after my dad passed, we went to go visit relatives, my family, and I saw my great aunt. She's not my grandparent, but she's a sibling of one of my grandparents. And she and my dad were really close, and I hadn't seen her since my dad passed. So we saw each other, and we were super emotional. We both obviously just bawled and cried, and she was making dua for him. And then she grabbed me by the head and looked at me and said, "Subhi, اللي خلف ما مات," which basically translates to the one or the person who has kids doesn't die. And the deeper meaning behind that is that the parent who teaches their child good values and wisdom and, faith in Allah, when that person dies, when the parent passes, they don't actually die because their child carries on the wisdom and the lessons and the values that their parents taught them. She told me that more than 2 years ago now, and I think that has been one of the biggest forms of help on how to manage the emotions that you feel whenever you're going through the grieving process. So whenever you lose someone, beyond missing them and wanting to be around them, a bigger hurdle is not knowing what to do with the emotions that you have that you want to share with them, but you can't because they've passed. And I think this was a good way for me to deal with the emotions and what to do with them. And so I told myself, I was like, okay, well, one, what were the lessons that my dad taught me? Whether he taught me verbally or he taught me by action, by showing me on how to be a good person, how to be a good servant of Allah. And then just running with those lessons that he taught me, and trying to be the best at them. And I think like one example was that my dad, every single Eid, and this was in the 90s, so this is like a throwback for some people, every Eid, he would pull out his phone book, his little book of numbers that he had, and he would call every single person in that book and greet them with the Eid Mubarak and ask them how they're doing and just get general updates on their life. And I just remember like hearing my dad for hours on the day of Eid, him talking on the phone. And I never really understood that. Up until adulthood, and even just like Islamically, I know that it's like, it's part of our duty as Muslims to greet your loved ones, Eid Mubarak, or even outside of Eid, talking to your loved ones, catching up with them, talking to them, asking them how they are. And that's something that my dad was amazing at. My dad always called his family, he always called his friends, and he always asked about them. And he never told me to do those things. He just was a champion at that. And that's one of the things that I look back now, I'm like, I need to be more like that. That's what I want to be. That's the kind of person I want to be known as, among my friends, among my family. Or another thing was that like my dad, again, he never taught me this. This is something that I would look back and like I would go through the reels of our memories together, and I remember him doing this 100% of the time. My dad, if he were in public and he were talking to anyone, he would always hold eye contact with them. If he was speaking to someone or they were speaking to him, he was like looking at them straight in the eye. And that was his way of showing them that I acknowledge you, like I see you as a person. And I kind of like vaguely remember him saying that when I was a kid, that when you're talking to someone, you look at them. But I learned that mostly through just seeing my dad doing that, and him being the champion at that, and just showing people that I see that you are in front of me and I acknowledge you, so I'm going to give you the eye contact and the respect that comes with that. And I think this is a good lesson, not just for those of y'all who are going through the grieving process, but those of y'all who just have parents or have people in your lives, like a mentor, who have taught you a lot of good things and on how to live your life as a Muslim especially. And just being the champion at that. And in that way, honoring the time and the love that they gave to you. And especially Islamically, like religiously, I think it's really important to take on you know, the lessons that they taught you in that sense. Like, I remember my dad didn't care if I were a doctor, engineer, or if I had a mansion or a really nice car. He literally could not care less. But the one thing that I know that made my dad just like the happiest father on this earth was seeing me praying. And I vividly remember my dad, like the joy that I would see in his face when he would like come into my room and he would like catch me praying. Like he'll open the door and be like, "Oh, sorry," and then go to the living room, and then I'll come out to him and be like, "Oh, sorry, Baba, did you need something?" And he was just like smiling, like super happy, because I know like that's what made my dad truly happy. And you know, obviously he's the one who taught me how to pray. And so I think it's my duty as his son, now that he's passed, to just like be the champion at Salah, like be the best servant I can be. And inshallah, you know, all the deeds that I get and the barakah that I get from being a good Muslim, that he also gets it, even though he's passed, but he's the one who taught me those things. So just think and reflect on, you know, what the lessons are that you were taught, and just kill it. Inshallah.